The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with tension as delegates from 47 different species gathered for the emergency session. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vraxian Empire adjusted his crystalline breathing apparatus, his 4 eyes scanning the room with barely concealed disdain. For 3 cycles, they had debated the same question that plagued every civilized world: what to do about the humans. "They are a contamination," Zethkar declared, his voice echoing through the translation matrix. "Their emotional instability makes them unsuitable for galactic citizenship. We have documented evidence of their irrational behavior patterns." Across the chamber, the ethereal luminous collective pulsed in agreement, their light forms flickering in synchronized patterns. The mechanical orthodoxy's representative, a towering construct of polished metal, emitted a series of calculated beeps that translated to cold mathematical support for the Vraxian position. Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's sole representative, sat quietly in the human delegation pod. At 34, she was young for a galactic ambassador, but her xenobiology credentials and diplomatic training had made her the obvious choice when first contact occurred 2 years ago. She had spent months preparing for this moment, knowing that humanity's future among the stars hung in the balance. "Ambassador Chen," the council speaker's melodious voice filled the chamber. The speaker was a Meridian, a species known for their impartiality and ancient wisdom. "You have requested the floor to present new evidence regarding human behavioral patterns. The council recognizes your right to speak." Sarah stood, her hands steady despite the weight of 46 alien gazes upon her. She had studied each species represented here, learned their customs, their fears, their misconceptions about humanity. Most saw humans as primitive, driven by base emotions rather than logic or higher consciousness. "Honored delegates," she began, activating the holographic display unit. "I understand your concerns about human emotional responses. You see them as chaotic, unpredictable, even dangerous. Today I want to show you something that happened 3 weeks ago on Earth, in a small city called Portland." The hologram flickered to life, showing a busy street scene. Humans moved about their daily lives, some carrying the small rectangular devices they called phones, others hurrying between the tall structures that served as their dwellings and workplaces. "This footage comes from a public security camera," Sarah explained. "I chose it specifically because it captures something completely ordinary, unplanned, and natural. No human in this scene knew they were being recorded for any official purpose." Zethkar's mandibles clicked impatiently. "We have seen human population centers before, Ambassador. Their chaotic nature is well documented. Please, watch," Sarah said gently. The hologram focused on a small human child, perhaps 6 Earth years old, walking beside a taller female who appeared to be her genetic mother. The child had what humans called brown hair, tied back with a colorful fabric band, and wore a bright yellow garment that seemed designed for comfort rather than status or protection. "The child's name is Emma Rodriguez," Sarah narrated. "She was returning from her educational facility with her mother when they encountered something unexpected." On the holographic display, the child suddenly stopped walking. Her small face turned toward something off camera, and her expression changed to one of concern. The Vraxian delegation shifted uncomfortably, their natural distrust of human facial expressions making them wary. "What has captured the child's attention?" asked the representative from the crystalline hierarchy, their voice chiming like wind through precious stones. The camera angle shifted, revealing what Emma had seen. Lying near the base of one of the human structures was a creature roughly the size of a human child, covered in golden brown fur. Its 4 legs were curled beneath its body, and its breathing was labored and irregular. "The creature is what humans call a dog," Sarah explained. "They are not sentient in the way we define intelligence, but humans have formed deep bonds with them over thousands of years. This particular dog appears to be injured and alone." The alien delegates watched as Emma's mother tried to guide her away from the animal, speaking in the musical tones that humans used for communication, but the child resisted, her small face displaying what humans called concern. Zethkar leaned forward. "The adult human shows appropriate caution. The juvenile, however, demonstrates the exact emotional instability we have documented." "Watch," Sarah repeated. Emma broke free from her mother's gentle grip and approached the injured dog. The animal's eyes opened, revealing pain and confusion. Most humans would have stopped there, Sarah knew. understanding the potential danger of approaching an unknown hurt animal. But Emma did something that made Sarah's heart race even now, weeks later. The little girl knelt beside the dog and began speaking to it in soft, gentle tones. She reached out slowly, letting the animal sense her presence, her intentions. The Galactic Council chamber had fallen completely silent. "The child cannot communicate with this creature," observed the Meridian speaker. "It lacks the cognitive capacity for meaningful exchange." "That's correct," Sarah agreed. "But watch what happens next." Emma's small hand touched the dog's head, gently stroking the soft fur. The animal's tail moved slightly, a sign that humans recognized as trust and gratitude. The child continued speaking to the dog, her voice carrying tones of comfort and reassurance that transcended the barrier between species. Then, without hesitation or fear, Emma leaned down and pressed her lips briefly to the top of the dog's head. A kiss in human terms, a gesture of pure affection and comfort offered to a suffering creature that could never understand its meaning. Never reciprocate, never offer anything in return. The dog's reaction was immediate and unmistakable. Its tail began wagging with more energy, its breathing steadied, and the pain in its eyes seemed to diminish. More importantly, the animal relaxed completely, trusting this small human with its vulnerability. Sarah paused the hologram at this moment, letting the image burn into the minds of every delegate present. "This interaction lasted less than 2 minutes," she said quietly. "No one ordered Emma to help this animal. No law required it. No authority figure demanded compassion. No reward awaited her. She acted purely from what we humans call love." The chamber remained silent, 46 different forms of alien life processing what they had witnessed. "In 3 weeks, you will vote on humanity's application for galactic citizenship," Sarah continued. "I ask you to remember this moment. This is who we are." In the hours following Ambassador Chen's presentation, the Galactic Council descended into chaos unlike anything seen in the past century. Delegates huddled in their species-specific groups, their communication systems overloaded with messages from homeworlds demanding explanations for what they had witnessed. Zethkar paced within the Vraxian delegation chamber, his crystalline breathing apparatus cycling rapidly in agitation. Around him, his fellow Vraxians maintained their typical silence, but their bioluminescent patches flickered with patterns of confusion and concern. "It changes nothing," Zethkar declared to his subordinates. "One child's irrational behavior cannot override cycles of documentation, proving human instability." But even as he spoke, Zethkar found himself replaying the moment when the small human had kissed the injured animal. In Vraxian culture, physical contact was reserved for mating rituals and combat. The concept of touching another being for comfort, especially one of a different species, was completely foreign. "Sir," spoke Sub-Ambassador Kethral, her voice cautious, "the biological readings we took during the human presentation show something unusual." Zethkar's 4 eyes focused on his subordinate. "Explain." "When the human child made contact with the animal, our sensors detected massive biochemical changes in both organisms. The animal's stress hormones decreased by 47% within 30 seconds, but more significantly, the child's brain activity showed patterns we've never recorded before." "What kind of patterns?" Kethral activated a portable holographic display, showing complex neurological scans. The human child's neural pathways lit up in regions associated with what they call empathy and compassion. But the activity was so intense, so coordinated, that our xenobiologists are calling it unlike anything in known galactic species. Meanwhile, in the crystalline hierarchy's meditation chamber, Elder Sithara contemplated the recording of Emma's interaction. The crystalline beings processed information through harmonic resonance, and the frequency patterns they had detected during the child's action were disturbing in their implications. The human's emotional emanations were pure, Sithara told her gathered clusterkin. "No deception, no calculation, no expectation of reciprocity. We have searched our databases of 93 known sentient species, and none demonstrate this level of instinctive altruism toward non-related organisms." The youngest of their cluster, barely 3 centuries old, vibrated with curiosity. "Elder, could this be why humans form such strong bonds with non-sentient species? Their capacity for what they term love extends beyond genetic programming?" Sithara's crystalline form pulsed thoughtfully, It would explain their unique position among galactic species. No other race has successfully domesticated and formed emotional bonds with as many different life forms as humans have on their homeworld. The Luminous Collective faced a different kind of crisis. As beings of pure energy, they existed in a state of perfect logical harmony, sharing consciousness and decision-making through quantum entanglement. The human child's action had created ripples in their collective, understanding that threatened their fundamental worldview. The human demonstrated individual volition in service of another being's well-being, pulsed the entity known as brightness of understanding. This contradicts our analysis that individual consciousness inevitably leads to selfishness and chaos. More troubling, added the entity called depth of wisdom, is that the human's action appears to have been motivated by what they call love, an emotion we have dismissed as illogical. Yet the results were measurably beneficial to the injured creature. The collective fell into unusual discord, as thousands of individual consciousness fragments struggled to process this information. For a species that prided itself on perfect unity, the implications of human individual compassion were deeply disturbing. Dr. Sarah Chen spent those same hours in the human quarters, fielding communications from Earth, the President, the Secretary General of the United Nations, and dozens of other officials wanted immediate updates on the Council's reaction. "How are they taking it?" asked Dr. Martinez, Sarah's assistant and the only other human on the station. "Better than I expected." "Honestly," Sarah replied, reviewing the flood of data her monitoring equipment had collected during the presentation. "The biosignatures showed genuine confusion rather than outright rejection." "That's actually promising. What about Zethkar? He seemed pretty hostile." Sarah pulled up the Vraxian's biological readings from the session. "Look at this." His stress indicators spiked during Emma's kiss, but not in the way we'd expect from anger or disgust. His neural activity shows patterns consistent with what humans would call surprise and something approaching wonder. Wonder, from a Vraxian? I know it sounds impossible, but the data doesn't lie. For just a moment, when Emma kissed that dog, every single delegate in that chamber experienced something they'd never encountered before. They saw pure, selfless love in action. Sarah walked to the viewing port, gazing out at the stars that represented thousands of different worlds, each populated by species that had achieved interstellar travel through logic, efficiency, and carefully controlled emotion. Earth was the newcomer, the chaotic variable that didn't fit their established patterns. "The problem," she continued, "is that most galactic species achieve space travel by suppressing or controlling emotional responses. They see emotions as obstacles to progress, but humans reach the stars because of our emotions, not despite them." "What do you mean?" Sarah smiled, thinking of the countless human explorers, scientists and dreamers who had looked up at the night sky and felt wonder, hope, and an irresistible urge to reach for something greater. "We didn't explore space because it was logical. We did it because we love mystery, we love challenge, and we love the idea of finding others among the stars. Every human space mission has been driven by emotions that other species try to eliminate." Her communication device chimed with an urgent message. Sarah's eyes widened as she read it. "What is it?" Dr. Martinez asked. "It's from the Meridian speaker. She wants to meet privately. She says the council needs to understand something about the human child's action that wasn't apparent in the recording." "That doesn't sound good." Sarah gathered her materials, her mind racing through possibilities. "Actually, Dr. Martinez, I think it might be exactly what we need." As she prepared to meet with the most powerful figure in galactic politics, Sarah reflected on how a 6-year-old girl named Emma Rodriguez had, with one simple gesture of love, created ripples that were now spreading through the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The question was whether those ripples would be seen as a threat to galactic order or as something they had been missing all along. Her quarters across the station, Speaker Meridian Thalandra reviewed the biological data collected during the human presentation for the 100th time. As a Meridian, she possessed the ability to sense emotional resonance across species barriers, a gift that had made her people natural mediators and peacekeepers. What she had felt during the child's interaction with the injured animal had shaken her to her core. The purity of the emotion, the absolute lack of self-interest, the instinctive drive to comfort a suffering being, had registered on her empathic sensors like nothing she had ever encountered. The Meridians had long believed that true altruism was a myth, that all actions were ultimately motivated by self-interest. even when disguised as virtue. But the human child had proven them wrong. As she prepared for her meeting with Ambassador Chen, Talandra wondered if humanity's greatest strength might also be their greatest gift to the galaxy. The Meridian Speaker's private chamber was unlike any space Sarah had ever entered. The walls seemed to breathe with soft, pearl-like luminescence, and the air itself felt alive with some kind of energy that made her skin tingle. Speaker Talandra stood at the center of the room, her elongated form radiating the serene grace that had made the Meridians the galaxy's most trusted mediators. Ambassador Chen, Talandra's voice resonated with harmonics that human ears couldn't quite process yet somehow understood. Please sit. We have much to discuss. Sarah settled into a chair that molded itself to her form, clearly designed to accommodate various alien physiologies. Thank you for agreeing to meet privately, Speaker. I hope my presentation hasn't caused too much disruption to the Council's proceedings. Disruption? Talandra's expression shifted, and what Sarah had learned was the Meridian equivalent of mild amusement. My dear Ambassador, you have done something far more significant than cause disruption. You have fundamentally challenged how 46 different civilizations understand the nature of consciousness itself. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. I'm not sure I understand. Talandra moved closer, her presence somehow comforting despite her alien nature. My people possess what you might call empathic abilities. We can sense the emotional resonance of other beings, which is why we serve as mediators in galactic conflicts. For over 3,000 years, we have mapped the emotional spectrum of every known sentient species. The speaker activated a holographic display that filled the air between them with swirling patterns of light and color. Each species has a unique emotional signature. The Vraxians, for example, operate primarily in frequencies associated with logic and territorial protection. The crystalline hierarchy resonates with patterns of order and harmony. The luminous collective exists in states of perfect unity. Sarah watched the patterns dance through the air, each one representing an entire civilization's emotional landscape. They're beautiful, but I still don't understand what this has to do with Emma and the dog. This, Talandra said, adding a new pattern to the display, is the emotional signature we recorded from your species during various interactions over the past 2 years. The human pattern was unlike any of the others. Where most species showed relatively stable, predictable wavelengths, the human signature was complex, chaotic, and constantly shifting. It contained elements that appeared in other species' patterns, but combined in ways that shouldn't have been possible. We initially interpreted this complexity as instability, Talandra continued. It seemed to confirm the concerns raised by delegates like Ambassador Zethkar. But during your presentation today, something extraordinary happened. The speaker modified the display, focusing on a specific moment. Sarah recognized it immediately as the instant when Emma had kissed the injured dog. At this moment, the human child's emotional signature did something we have never recorded in any sentient being across 93 known species. The pattern on the display suddenly simplified, becoming a pure, brilliant golden wave that pulsed with perfect clarity. For 37 seconds, she achieved what we call emotional transcendence, a state of pure, selfless love that exists without any trace of self-interest or calculation. Sarah stared at the display, her scientific mind struggling to process the implications. You're saying Emma achieved some kind of evolved emotional state? Not evolved, Talandra corrected gently. Natural. This appears to be an innate capability in humans that manifests when you encounter suffering in others. We have reviewed historical records of human behavior and found similar patterns during what you call acts of heroism, charity, and sacrifice. The speaker paused, her luminescent form dimming slightly. Ambassador Chen, in 3,000 years of galactic civilization, we have never encountered a species capable of true altruism. Every action, no matter how benevolent it appears, has always been motivated by some form of self-interest, survival instinct, or genetic programming. But humans are different? Radically different. Your species possesses the ability to act purely for the benefit of others, even when it provides no advantage to yourselves. More remarkably, you extend this capacity beyond your own species. The child showed genuine love for a creature that could never reciprocate, never assist her survival, never provide any benefit whatsoever. Sarah felt the weight of this revelation settling over her. What does this mean for humanity's application to the Galactic Council? Talandra turned away from the display, her form brightening again. That is precisely why I asked you here. The Council faces an unprecedented decision. Your species represents something entirely new in our understanding of consciousness and civilization. Some of the delegates see this as dangerous, Sarah observed. Indeed, the Vraxian Empire views human emotional instability as a threat to galactic order. The Luminous Collective fears that human individualism could contaminate their perfect unity. The mechanical orthodoxy cannot compute how a civilization driven by emotion could achieve technological advancement. And the Meridians? Talandra was quiet for a long moment, her form pulsing with complex patterns of light. We have spent millennia believing that logic and controlled emotion were the highest forms of consciousness. We have built a galactic civilization based on the premise that individual desires must be suppressed for the greater good. But your child proved that individual consciousness, when motivated by pure love, can create more good than our most carefully calculated collective decisions. In 37 seconds, she demonstrated a capacity for moral action that our entire civilization has been unable to achieve in 3,000 years. Sarah felt a surge of pride in her species, mixed with the overwhelming responsibility of representing humanity to the galaxy. What happens now? Now, Talandra said, we face a choice that will determine the future of galactic civilization. Do we admit humans to the Council and risk having our fundamental beliefs challenged? Or do we reject them and lose the opportunity to learn from the only species that has achieved true altruism? The speaker moved to a viewing port, gazing out at the stars. There is something else you should know, Ambassador. The recording of your child's interaction has been transmitted to the home worlds of every Council member. The response has been unlike anything we have seen. What kind of response? On Vraxia Prime, their most rigid social order has begun experiencing what they call emotional anomalies. Citizens have begun expressing concern for the welfare of their domesticated animals. On the crystalline worlds, individuals have started making personal sacrifices for the benefit of others. Even the mechanical orthodoxy has reported units acting outside their programming to assist other units in distress. Sarah's eyes widened. You're saying Emma's action is influencing other species? The emotional resonance of true altruism appears to be contagious across species barriers. Simply witnessing genuine love has awakened dormant capacities in civilizations that have spent millennia suppressing such impulses. Talandra turned back to Sarah, her expression serious. Your species stands at a crossroads, Ambassador. You could reshape galactic civilization, introducing concepts of love and selfless service that could elevate every species to new heights of moral development. Or the Council could decide that such changes are too dangerous, too disruptive to the order we have maintained for millennia. They could vote to quarantine humanity on Earth, ensuring that your influence never spreads beyond your solar system. Sarah felt the weight of her entire species' future pressing down on her shoulders. What do you recommend? I recommend, Talandra said with something approaching a smile, that you prepare for the most important presentation of your life. Because in 2 days, you will have one final opportunity to convince the Council that humanity's gift of love is not a threat to be contained, but a treasure to be shared. As Sarah left the speaker's chambers, her mind raced with possibilities. Somewhere on Earth, a 6-year-old girl named Emma Rodriguez was probably playing with her toys, completely unaware that her simple act of kindness had set in motion events that could transform the galaxy. The question now was whether Sarah could find a way to help the Council see what she had learned in the past hour, that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their determination, but their capacity to love without condition, to sacrifice without expectation, and to care for others simply because it was right. The fate of galactic civilization might well depend on whether the most advanced species in the galaxy could learn to love like a human child. The communications array in Sarah's quarters buzzed constantly over the next 2 days as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Each message brought news that seemed impossible, yet the evidence was undeniable. The simple recording of Emma Rodriguez kissing an injured dog was creating ripple effects across civilizations that had remained unchanged for millennia. Dr. Martinez burst into Sarah's workspace, tablet in hand and excitement in his voice. Sarah, you need to see this report from the Vraxian homeworld. Sarah looked up from her preparation notes, exhaustion evident in her eyes. She had been working non-stop to craft a presentation that could convince the Council that humanity deserved membership, not quarantine. What's happening on Vraxia Prime? Something unprecedented. Listen to this, Martinez read from his tablet. For the first time in recorded Vraxian history, the warrior caste has begun caring for injured animals instead of disposing of them as inefficient. The ruling class reports a 23% decrease in territorial conflicts as clan leaders spend time understanding, rather than conquering their neighbors. Sarah set down her stylus, her scientific mind struggling to process the implications. That's impossible. Vraxian society has been based on rigid hierarchy and territorial control for over 2,000 years. It gets better. The crystalline hierarchy is reporting similar changes. Individual crystals are breaking formation to help damage cluster mates, something that was previously considered a severe mental disorder. Martinez continued reading. The Luminous Collective is experiencing what they call voluntary fragmentation, where individual consciousness units are choosing to act independently to help others rather than maintaining perfect unity. Their scientists are baffled because this should be causing civilization collapse, but instead, overall efficiency and happiness metrics are increasing. Sarah felt a mixture of wonder and terror. We're not just asking for membership in the Galactic Council anymore. We're accidentally triggering the evolution of entire civilizations. There's more. Martinez activated a holographic display showing incoming transmissions from across the galaxy. These are personal messages from individual aliens addressed to humanity. Thousands of them. The first message materialized as a translation matrix converted alien thought patterns into words Sarah could understand. It came from a young Vraxian named Ketmore. To the human child who showed kindness to the injured creature, the message began. I am a warrior of the 3rd rank, trained from birth to value strength above all else. Yesterday I encountered a damaged maintenance construct in my dwelling complex. Before your recording I would have reported it for disposal. Instead I found myself attempting to repair it. The construct had no consciousness, no ability to thank me, no value to my status or survival. Yet caring for it filled me with what I can only describe as warmth. I do not understand this feeling, but I wish to learn more. The next message came from the crystalline worlds, transmitted through harmonic frequencies that painted words in the air. Human child of compassion, it chimed. I am Fragment of Starlight, formerly part of the Greater Harmony Cluster. After witnessing your act of love, I chose to leave my cluster to care for damaged crystals that our society typically abandons. This choice should have made me insane by our cultural standards. Yet I have never experienced such clarity of purpose. You have shown us that breaking unity for love creates a greater unity than we ever imagined. Message after message played in Sarah's quarters, each one describing personal transformations that defied everything the galaxy had believed about consciousness and civilization. A mechanical orthodoxy unit had chosen to sacrifice its own power reserves to keep a failing companion online. Members of the ethereal conclave had begun manifesting physical forms to comfort grieving individuals. Even the most logically rigid species were discovering emotions they had never known they possessed. This is incredible, Sarah whispered, but it's also terrifying. If the Council sees these changes as destabilizing, they could vote to eliminate humanity entirely. Martinez finished. The question is whether they see this as evolution or contamination. Sarah's communication device chirped with an urgent message from Earth. It was from Dr. Elena Vasquez, the director of the Global Xenological Institute. Sarah, the message began, we've been monitoring the galactic communication networks, and we're seeing something unprecedented. The recording of Emma's interaction isn't just changing alien behavior. It's being studied, analyzed, and replicated by scientists across the galaxy. But more importantly, we're receiving reports that some species are attempting to create artificial scenarios to trigger their own emotional responses. Sarah frowned. What kind of scenarios? Martinez pulled up additional data streams. Look at this. The Vraxians have established what they call compassion training centers, where young warriors practice caring for injured creatures. The crystalline hierarchy has created meditation chambers designed to help individuals experience empathy. The mechanical orthodoxy is reprogramming units to prioritize emotional responses alongside logical ones. They're trying to learn how to love, Sarah realized. An entire galaxy of advanced civilizations is studying a 6-year-old girl's spontaneous act of kindness, like it's the most important scientific discovery in history. Because maybe it is, Martinez said quietly. Think about it, Sarah. These species have achieved incredible technological advancement, but they've never experienced what humans consider basic emotional intelligence. They've created paradise through logic and control, but they've never known joy, compassion, or love. Sarah walked to her viewing port, looking out at the star field that represented countless worlds full of beings who were just beginning to understand what it meant to care for others without reward or recognition. There's something else, Martinez continued. We've been analyzing the biological data from Emma's interaction with the dog. The quantum resonance patterns suggest that her emotional state actually triggered measurable changes in the local space-time fabric. What do you mean? Human emotions, especially love and compassion, appear to have physical effects that extend beyond our bodies. When Emma kissed that dog, she didn't just comfort the animal. She created a ripple in reality itself that can be detected and measured. It's why the recording has such a powerful effect on other species. They're not just seeing love. They're experiencing the actual quantum signature of pure altruism. Sarah felt her breath catch. You're saying human emotions have measurable effects on reality? We think so. And if that's true, it means humanity isn't just biologically unique, we're physically unique. Our capacity for love might actually be a force that can reshape the universe at a fundamental level. The implications were staggering. If human emotions could influence reality itself, then humanity's potential role in galactic civilization was far greater than anyone had imagined. They weren't just another species seeking membership in an existing order. They were a force that could transform the nature of existence itself. This changes everything, Sarah said. If I can convince the Council that human love isn't a chaotic force but a fundamental power that can elevate all of civilization, you think they'll accept us? Sarah turned back to her preparation materials with renewed purpose. I think they'll realize they can't afford not to. A civilization that can harness the power of love, that can teach other species to transcend their limitations through compassion, isn't just valuable, it's essential. As she worked through the night, refining her presentation and incorporating the flood of new data, Sarah reflected on the awesome responsibility that rested on her shoulders. Tomorrow, she would stand before the most powerful beings in the galaxy and argue that a little girl's kiss could save them all. The irony wasn't lost on her that the fate of galactic civilization might depend on whether the most advanced species in the universe could learn to think like a human child. Outside her window, the stars seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if the universe itself was waiting to see whether love would triumph over fear, whether compassion would prove stronger than control, and whether a simple act of kindness could indeed change everything. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. Word of humanity's final presentation had spread across the galaxy, and delegates from species that hadn't participated in council proceedings for centuries had arrived to witness what many believed would be the most significant decision in galactic history. Sarah stood at the central podium, her hands steady despite the magnitude of the moment. Around her, 46 different forms of alien life waited in absolute silence. She could feel the weight of their attention, their hopes, their fears, and their desperate curiosity about what she would say. Honored delegates, Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation matrix. 3 days ago, I showed you a recording of a human child performing an act of simple kindness. Today I stand before you not just as Earth's ambassador, but as a representative of something far more significant than any single world or species. She activated the holographic display, and Emma's interaction with the injured dog appeared once again in the center of the chamber. But this time, Sarah had overlaid it with data that made the true scope of what had happened visible to all. This recording has been viewed by beings across the galaxy. In the past 72 hours, we have documented unprecedented changes in behavior patterns among your populations. But these aren't random anomalies or cultural contaminations. They represent the emergence of capabilities that were always present in your species, but dormant until now. Ambassador Zethkar rose from his delegation pod, his 4 eyes fixed on Sarah with an intensity that would have intimidated her days ago. Now she recognized it as fascination rather than hostility. Ambassador Chen, Zethkar said, his voice lacking its previous antagonism, the changes occurring on our worlds are undeniable. But what evidence do you have that these developments are beneficial rather than destructive to galactic stability? Sarah smiled, grateful for the question. I'm glad you asked, Ambassador Zethkar, because the evidence comes from your own world. The holographic display shifted to show data streams from Vraxia Prime. In the 3 days since your population began experiencing what you call emotional anomalies, your world has seen a 47% decrease in violent crime, a 63% increase in technological innovation, and the first peaceful resolution of territorial disputes in your recorded history. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as delegates processed this information. The crystalline hierarchy, Sarah continued, has reported that individual crystals working to help others have achieved harmony frequencies previously thought impossible. Your collective consciousness has not weakened. It has become stronger and more complex. The luminous collective has discovered that voluntary fragmentation for compassionate purposes creates new forms of unity that exceed the efficiency of your previous perfect synchronization. Individual action motivated by love has proven more effective than collective action motivated by logic. Speaker Thalandra leaned forward. Ambassador Chen, you speak of love as if it were a measurable force. Are you claiming that human emotions have quantifiable effects beyond psychological responses? That's exactly what I'm claiming, Speaker. Sarah activated a new display showing the quantum analysis of Emma's interaction. When Emma kissed that injured dog, her emotional state created measurable changes in the fundamental structure of space-time around her. The quantum signature of pure altruism has been detected and mapped. The chamber erupted in excited chatter as delegates struggled to comprehend the implications. Love, compassion, and selfless service aren't just emotional states, Sarah continued. They are fundamental forces that can reshape reality at the quantum level. When a being achieves true altruism, they generate what our scientists are calling compassion fields that enhance the well-being of everything within their influence. The representative from the mechanical orthodoxy, its metal form gleaming under the chamber lights, emitted a series of calculated tones. This suggests that consciousness itself may be more complex than our models indicate. If emotions can influence physical reality, then the separation between mind and matter may be an illusion. Precisely, Sarah agreed. Human consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it participates in creating it. And the most powerful creative force we've discovered is love. She paused, letting the weight of this revelation settle over the assembled delegates. But here's what makes this truly significant for the Galactic Council. Humans don't just possess this capability, we can teach it to others. Every species that has witnessed our capacity for love has begun developing similar abilities. You're not just considering whether to admit one new species to the Council, you're deciding whether to embrace a fundamental evolution of consciousness itself. Elder Sithara of the crystalline hierarchy resonated with harmonic frequencies that translated as wonder. You are suggesting that humans could serve as teachers, helping other species develop emotional capacities they never knew they possessed? Not teachers, Sarah corrected gently. Partners. Because while humans may have a natural talent for love and compassion, every species here has achieved things we can barely imagine. Your logical precision, your harmonious unity, your technological mastery. These are gifts that could be enhanced, not replaced, by emotional intelligence. Sarah walked closer to the delegate pods, her expression earnest. Imagine a galaxy where Vraxian strategic thinking is guided by compassion, as well as logic. Picture crystalline harmony enhanced by individual empathy. Envision the luminous collective's perfect unity expanded to include the chaotic beauty of individual love. The potential is limitless, she continued. But it requires a choice. You can vote to quarantine humanity, preserving your current understanding of consciousness and civilization. Or you can vote for partnership, accepting that a 6-year-old girl named Emma Rodriguez has shown us something that could transform every world. Every species, every individual in the galaxy. Delegate Kethril of the Vraxian Empire spoke up, her voice carrying notes of something that sounded almost like hope. What guarantees do we have that human influence will remain beneficial? Emotions can be destructive as well as creative. Sarah nodded, acknowledging the validity of the concern. There are no guarantees, Delegate Kethril. But consider this. In all of human history, our greatest achievements have come not from suppressing our emotions, but from channeling them toward positive purposes. Our art, our science, our exploration of space itself, all driven by love, wonder, and hope. Moreover, she continued, the quantum signature we've detected only occurs with genuine altruism, love that expects nothing in return. Selfish or destructive emotions create entirely different quantum patterns. The universe itself seems designed to reward genuine compassion. Speaker Thalandra rose, her luminescent form brightening. The council will now recess for deliberation. All delegates will have 1 hour to consult with their homeworlds before we proceed to the final vote. As the delegates dispersed to their private chambers, Sarah remained at the podium, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she had just attempted. She had argued not just for human membership in the Galactic Council, but for a fundamental transformation of how consciousness and civilization were understood. In 1 hour, 46 different species would vote on whether love was a force worth embracing or a chaos worth containing. The decision would determine not just humanity's future among the stars, but the evolutionary path of galactic civilization itself. As she watched the alien delegates file out of the chamber, Sarah found herself thinking of Emma Rodriguez, probably asleep in her bed on Earth, completely unaware that her simple act of kindness had brought the galaxy to a crossroads that would define the next millennium of interstellar civilization. The vote would come soon. And with it, the answer to the most important question in galactic history: was love stronger than fear? The hour of deliberation felt like an eternity. Sarah paced her quarters, monitoring the communication channels as urgent transmissions flowed between the council station and dozens of homeworlds across the galaxy. The fate of her entire species hung in the balance. Yet all she could think about was whether she had done justice to the simple beauty of what Emma had shown the universe. Dr. Martinez burst through the door, his tablet displaying real-time data from across the galactic network. Sarah, you need to see this. The voting hasn't even started yet, but something extraordinary is happening. Sarah looked at the screen, her eyes widening as she processed the information. What am I looking at? Live feeds from delegate homeworlds. Look at this one from Vraxia Prime. The screen showed massive gatherings in the crystalline spires that served as Vraxian population centers. Thousands of warriors, traditionally the most rigid and emotionally controlled members of their society, had gathered to care for injured creatures from across their world. The image was surreal. Beings trained for combat gently tending to broken-winged flyers and limping ground crawlers. This is happening simultaneously on dozens of worlds, Martinez continued, switching between feeds. The crystalline hierarchy worlds are experiencing what they call voluntary harmony. Individual, crystals choosing to form new collective patterns based on compassion rather than mere efficiency. The images that followed seemed impossible. On world after world, species that had remained unchanged for millennia were spontaneously developing behaviors that mirrored human empathy and altruism. But these weren't crude imitations. Each species was finding its own unique expression of love and compassion. How is this possible? Sarah asked. The recording couldn't have reached all these worlds yet. That's just it, Martinez said excitedly. We think the quantum signature of Emma's action created a resonance effect. Love, true altruism, appears to propagate through space-time itself at faster than light speeds. When Emma kissed that dog, she didn't just affect the beings who saw the recording. She created ripples that touched consciousness across the galaxy. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. You're saying that love travels faster than light? We're saying that love might not be bound by the physical limitations we thought governed the universe. Quantum entanglement theory suggests that consciousness itself might be non-local, existing in dimensions beyond space and time. Emma's act of pure compassion may have triggered a galaxy-wide awakening simply by demonstrating what was possible. Before Sarah could fully process this revelation, her communication device chimed with an urgent message from Speaker Thalandra. Ambassador Chen, please return to the council chamber immediately. The delegates have reached a decision, but there have been some unexpected developments that require your presence. Sarah and Martinez hurried through the station corridors, finding them filled with beings from species they had never seen before. Apparently, word of the vote had spread beyond the traditional council membership, drawing representatives from the farthest reaches of galactic civilization. When they entered the council chamber, Sarah was stunned to see that the number of delegate pods had tripled. Species that had remained isolated for centuries had sent representatives to witness what was being called the most significant moment in galactic history. Speaker Thalandra called for order, her voice resonating with unusual emotion. Ambassador Chen, in the past hour, we have received formal applications for council membership from 15 species that have never participated in galactic governance. They cite humanity's demonstration of altruistic consciousness as inspiration for joining our cooperative civilization. Murmurs of amazement rippled through the chamber. Furthermore, Talandra continued, we have received a joint proposal from the Vraxian Empire, the Crystalline Hierarchy, and the Luminous Collective. 3 species that have been in territorial dispute for over 2 centuries. They wish to establish what they call a Compassion Research Consortium, dedicated to studying and developing the emotional capabilities that humanity has revealed. Ambassador Zethkar rose from his pod, but when he spoke, his voice carried none of its former hostility. Ambassador Chen, I owe you an apology. I believe that human emotional instability represented a threat to galactic order. I now understand that what I interpreted as instability was actually a sophistication of consciousness that my people had never achieved. Speaker, Zethkar continued, the Vraxian Empire formally withdraws all objections to human membership in the Galactic Council. Moreover, we request that humanity be granted special status as consciousness, development advisors to assist other species in developing emotional intelligence, capabilities. Elder Sithara's crystalline form chimed with harmonic agreement. The crystalline hierarchy seconds this proposal. Our analysis indicates that human emotional patterns could enhance the efficiency and well-being of every species, represented here. The representative from the Luminous Collective pulsed with patterns Sarah had learned to recognize as excitement. The collective agrees. Individual consciousness guided by love creates unity more powerful than our previous perfect synchronization. We request formal partnership with humanity to explore these new possibilities. Speaker Thalandra looked around the chamber, her expression reflecting the historic nature of the moment. The question before us is no longer whether to admit humanity to the Galactic Council. The question is whether we are prepared to accept the fundamental transformation of galactic civilization that humanity represents. All those in favor of granting humanity full membership in the Galactic Council, with special advisory status for consciousness development, please register your decision. Sarah held her breath as the voting display illuminated around the chamber. One by one, lights appeared next to each delegate pod indicating their choice. The Vraxian Empire, in favor. The Crystalline Hierarchy, in favor. The Luminous Collective, in favor. The Mechanical Orthodoxy, in favor. The Ethereal Conclave, in favor. The pattern continued around the chamber. Species after species, civilization after civilization, voted to embrace humanity and the transformation they represented. When the final vote was recorded, Speaker Thalandra announced the results with barely contained emotion. The motion passes unanimously. Humanity is welcomed as the newest member of the Galactic Council, with the special designation of Consciousness Development Advisors. The chamber erupted in sounds and displays that represented celebration across dozens of different species. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face as the reality of what had just happened settled over her. But Speaker Thalandra raised her hand for continued attention. There is one final matter to address. The Council has voted to establish a new galactic holiday, to be celebrated annually by all member species. It will be called Compassion Day, commemorating the moment when a human child demonstrated that love is the most powerful force in the universe. Furthermore, she continued with what appeared to be the meridian equivalent of a smile, we have decided to construct a memorial in the center of this station. It will feature a holographic recording of Emma Rodriguez kissing the injured dog, visible to all who pass through these halls as a reminder that the smallest acts of kindness can reshape the cosmos itself. As the formal session concluded, and delegates began approaching Sarah with congratulations and requests for cultural exchange programs, she found herself overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had been accomplished. A 6-year-old girl named Emma had kissed a hurt dog because it seemed like the right thing to do. In doing so, she had proven that love was not just an emotion, but a fundamental force of the universe powerful enough to unite the galaxy in common purpose. The age of compassion had begun, and humanity would help guide it. 1 year later, Emma Rodriguez walked through the Portland Children's Hospital with a spring in her step that had become legendary among the medical staff. At 7 years old, she had no real understanding of her role in galactic history, But she possessed something far more valuable, an unshakable belief that kindness could heal any hurt. Emma, called Dr. Sarah Martinez, who had returned to Earth to establish the Global Institute for Compassion Studies. Your friends are here to see you. Emma turned with delight toward the special visitation chamber that had been constructed in the hospital's new alien wing. Through the reinforced transparent walls, she could see her weekly visitors preparing for their session. Ketmore, the young Vraxian warrior who had been among the first to experience emotional awakening, carefully adjusted his breathing apparatus to accommodate Earth's atmosphere. Beside him, Fragment of Starlight, the crystal being who had left the greater harmony to pursue individual compassion, resonated softly with anticipation. A luminous collective entity called Bright Joy in Service flickered in its contained energy field, while Unit 77 Alpha of the Mechanical Orthodoxy performed final system checks on its new empathy subroutines. Emma, Ketmore's voice carried through the translation system with warmth that would have been impossible for a Vraxian just a year ago. We brought you something special today. Emma pressed her hands against the viewing wall, her face bright with genuine excitement. These weekly visits had become the highlight of her life, though she still didn't fully understand why beings from across the galaxy wanted to spend time with her. The hospital's alien interaction chamber had been one of the first facilities constructed under the new Galactic Compassion Accords. Designed to allow safe interaction between humans and alien visitors, it had become a pilgrimage site for beings from across the galaxy who wanted to learn from the child who had changed everything. What did you bring? Emma asked, bouncing slightly with anticipation. Fragment of Starlight's crystalline form chimed with harmonics that translated as laughter. We have been working together, all of our species, to create something that has never existed before in galactic history. Unit 77 Alpha moved forward, its mechanical form now decorated with colorful patterns that served no functional purpose except to express joy. Emma, we have learned to create art motivated by love rather than mere aesthetic calculation. This is our gift to you. The chamber's display system activated, revealing a holographic sculpture that took Emma's breath away. It showed hundreds of different alien forms, each unique, each beautiful, all reaching toward a central figure that looked remarkably like Emma herself. But the most amazing part was that the sculpture seemed alive, with each figure moving in harmony with the others, creating patterns of light and motion that spoke directly to the heart. It's beautiful, Emma whispered, then louder. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Bright Joy in Service pulsed with warm light. Each species in the galaxy contributed to this creation. Even those who have never met you personally wanted to be part of expressing their gratitude for what you taught us. What did I teach you? Emma asked with the innocent curiosity that had made her beloved across the galaxy. Ketmore leaned closer to the viewing wall, his four eyes gentle. You taught us that love is not weakness but the greatest strength in the universe. You showed us that caring for others, even when they cannot help you in return, makes all life more beautiful. Through the chamber's communication system, Emma could hear other voices joining the conversation. Dr. Sarah Chen, now Director of Human Galactic Relations, was providing translation for a group of beings who had traveled from the Outer Rim territories specifically to meet the child who had sparked the Great Awakening. Emma, Dr. Chen's voice carried through the speakers. These beings have come from worlds that were previously unknown to the Galactic Council. They heard about your kindness to the injured dog, and it inspired them to make contact with galactic civilization for the first time in their history. Emma looked at the assembled aliens with wonder. There are more of you? Millions more, Fragment of Starlight chimed. Word of your compassion has spread to every corner of the galaxy. Entire civilizations that had given up hope of finding kindness among the stars have chosen to emerge from isolation because of what you showed us. The conversation was interrupted by a familiar sound, the soft whimpering of an animal in distress. Emma immediately turned toward the source, her expression shifting to concern. In the corner of the chamber, a small creature that resembled the dog from a year ago lay in a healing pod, recovering from injuries sustained in an accident. Without hesitation, Emma walked to the healing pod and gently placed her hand on the transparent surface. It's okay, little friend, she said softly. You're safe now. Everyone here loves you. The alien delegates watched in silence as Emma began humming a simple tune, her free hand tracing gentle patterns on the pod's surface. The injured creature's breathing gradually steadied, and its eyes opened to look directly at Emma with obvious trust. "This is why we travel across the galaxy to see her," Ketmore said quietly to his companions. "Not because she is famous, but because she reminds us every day what we can become." Dr. Chen approached the group with a data pad containing the latest reports from across the galaxy. "You should know that the Compassion Studies program now operates on over 300 worlds. Crime rates have decreased by an average of 68% on planets that have implemented empathy education. Technological innovation has increased by 200% as species learn to collaborate rather than compete. More importantly," she continued, "we've discovered that the quantum signatures generated by acts of compassion are actually strengthening the fabric of spacetime itself. The universe appears to be more stable, more coherent in regions where beings practice genuine altruism." Unit 77 Alpha processed this information through its enhanced emotional subroutines. "Are you suggesting that love has measurable effects on the structure of reality itself?" "We're suggesting," Dr. Chen replied, "that Emma's simple act of kindness may have initiated a fundamental positive evolution in the universe itself. Love doesn't just transform consciousness, it appears to transform the cosmos." Emma, still focused on comforting the injured creature, looked up at the assembled beings with a smile that had become famous across the galaxy. "I don't understand all the big words," she said, "but I know that when we're kind to each other, everything feels better. The whole world feels happier." Fragment of starlight resonated with patterns of pure joy. "Out of the mouths of human children comes wisdom that our greatest philosophers could not achieve in millennia of study." As the visitation session concluded, and the alien delegates prepared to return to their respective worlds, Emma pressed her face against the viewing wall for one final message. "Will you tell everyone that I said hello?" she asked, "and that I hope they remember to be kind to all the creatures they meet?" "We will carry your message to every world in the galaxy," Ketmore promised. "And someday, when you are older, perhaps you will visit our worlds and see how your kindness has helped us become better than we ever dreamed possible." After the delegates had departed, Emma remained by the healing pod, continuing to hum softly to the recovering creature. Dr. Chen watched from the observation deck, marveling at how one child's simple gesture had created ripples that were still transforming the galaxy. Outside the hospital windows, the night sky seemed brighter than usual, filled with ships from dozens of different worlds, pilgrims, students, and teachers all drawn to Earth by the promise of learning to love as humans did. In the year since Emma had kissed an injured dog, the galaxy had discovered that its greatest evolutionary leap would come not from new technology or expanded territory, but from a force that humans had always known: the transformative power of unconditional love. The age of compassion had begun with a child's kiss, and it would continue to spread across the stars, one act of kindness at a time, until every being in the universe knew that they were valued, cherished, and never alone. Emma hummed her gentle song to the healing creature, completely unaware that her simple melody was being broadcast across the galactic communication network, bringing comfort to billions of beings who had learned that love, once awakened, could never be contained. The little girl had given the dog a kiss, and her reaction had indeed melted everyone's heart, across the entire galaxy.